Epstein, Prince Andrew, Jeff Bezos, Bill Cosby, Weinstein are all names we've come to hate, just everything they are and what they represent. The idealistic qualities that were previously administered to the upper class have since been diminished and replaced with ideas of resentment and hatred. Perhaps the objective of determining the causes of such shifts in ideas would be extremely difficult due to the fact there are so many factors at play. However, a journey through recent significant moments in history would at least help us understand and hold a better comprehension of how and why public opinion has shifted in the way that it sits now. The conclusion of such an analysis and investigation of these subjects would offer us two things. Firstly, why has this happened? And secondly, why are these perceptions important? But first, let's define what it means to be rich. Is it the same as being upper class, wealthy, well off? Yes, it is. Though there are a few interpretations you could have had of this word. Saying I'm rich in the past could have meant that I was saying I'm powerful, noble, great, but such sayings have since become obsolete. Nowadays, when someone says they are rich, they're probably referring to lots of money or an abundance of assets. They are wealthy, affluent, and though there are many just as valid definitions of the word, this is the one we'll be focusing on when referencing the rich. Opinions on the rich become relevant, as the scandals about alleged abuse of such power that comes with being rich is ever more frequent. Whether the abuse comes in the form of dodging taxes, underpaying workers to maximize profits like the likes of Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos, as well as many others, or equally as evil, if not arguably more so, the alleged sexual wrongdoings of the abundant intertwined paedophile rings that circulate within the elite rich. It all congeals together to reveal a negative outlook for most people. In the 19th century, saying access to information was limited would be an understatement when we compare it to the amount of information we have to access today. The newspapers would be the only reality of news people would get, excluding word of mouth of course. Though there were many of them, 52 London newspaper titles alone, where was the mass media's information coming from? Of course there were many sources. When it comes to the important topics such as war, the newspapers would make sure to publish the information that would sway the public's opinion in favour of decisions made by the Queen Victoria. Let's take an example, the Second Opium War, which started off from a trade deal. To put it simply, China did not want to trade in opium from Great Britain. The newspaper at the Times was conveniently the most read newspaper at the time, and it promoted opinions in support and justification of the Opium War. A war that benefited the pockets of Great Britain's opium exporters. Briefly, to go over the points made in the article, they were put in the following categories: the laws of the free market, government-sanctioned property rights, threat of economic upheaval, British honour and prestige, arrogance of the Chinese. All points are glazed in the ideas of nationalism, something the British public would have been support of. A great idea for the newspapers. If the overarching opinion modelled the mass media, the majority of the public would have been none the wiser to the counter-arguments. These events aren't a result of change in behaviour within the rich. The global spotlight of these upper-class criminals has only become more apparent because of the switch from where we consume our media. We no longer rely on mainstream media to tell the general public what is what. These same mainstream broadcasters have given these millionaire criminals a platform to inflict evils, which has only accelerated us into the digital age. An example of this is the BBC, that has previously allowed these types of people to exist and thrive in an environment in which they shouldn't. Jim will Fix It was a children's TV show that ran just under 20 years, with Jimmy Savile as the host and star of the show. Jimmy was also found out publicly, unfortunately after his death, that he was a paedophile and a sex offender. He had disgustingly accumulated 31 allegations across 7 police force areas. In 2011, Jim was worth $10 million. The Jimmy Savile case started a change in the general public's perception and started a movement to start looking up. They did so in several ways, one being people who had previously felt that they couldn't speak out about these elitists abusing the power that had come with such wealth, and a second consequence was placed on the mainstream media itself. More people distrusted the media that they consumed and begun to look at things more objectively, feeling that you could have the confidence to speak out about the dark, abusive reality, regardless if that reality tarnishes the image of a powerful person. It's coincided with the same independent thinking that comes with the new age of media. We're currently set in a place where we're given a voice that holds more validity than just rumors. We are listened to by each other. Although the Me Too movement has been discussed to have a handful of liars, and an argument could be made to say that too many cooks have spoiled the broth, you cannot ignore the good this movement has done. An association between this movement and the confidence that women and men have had to speak out about the abusive individuals is undeniable. In the early years of social media, the movement has started on MySpace. Fast forward to 2017 on Twitter, the ideas are the same, bringing the topic back to what is relevant. Who was outed? Of course, in the mix there was your average sexual perverts. Not to undermine the severity of their crimes, but perhaps comparatively, the people who have been held so highly and significantly with more powerful positions should be the priority, as that same stature gives them more means to abuse others. Like we previously discussed, power hasn't always been equal to wealth, but an individual's wealth always equals power in a capitalist society. So more often than not, an immoral use of power was done by someone of wealth. A rich individual's actions have the possibility to be immensely powerful and are undoubtedly far from the democratic society we like to think we live in. As I'd argue, very often these powerful people's actions neglect any consequence of justice, regardless of who they harm. Opposing ideas of my hypothesis is apparent. Statistics show your average Labour voter does not believe that billionaires should exist. No one deserves all that power. More than half of Brits agree with your average Labour voter, which would lead you to believe that Britain is anti-rich. However, in 2018, a survey showed 7 in 10 people support the monarchy. The royal family is believed to have a net worth of 68 billion. Such hypocrisy could be nailed down to the image and ideas attached to the royal family, rather than what they actually are. I believe the royal family continues to garner support because of their direct association with nationalism and traditionalism. So probably not overly surprising, a support of the royal family is more likely to be a Leave Brexit voter. Monarchists' favourite member of the royal family is currently the Queen herself. The Queen has been on the throne for 65 years. She's a staple for what people think of when you mention the UK. We have been in the EU for 45 years. People's change of heart is for many reasons, but it all derives from being nationalistic. The idea that we are better off on our own. All these facts continue the line of thinking that these clashing ideas are due to nationalism and traditionalism. The royal family has achieved a distinct disassociation with billionaires, so people's opinion when talking about the royal family doesn't correlate with the unearned wealth and power they have. So the only way the British public can conclusively be seen as having a like for the royal family because of their wealth is if or when the association of being nationalistic and perhaps traditionalist is broken. The idea that not all traditions are worth celebrating is an opinion that could grant a change in people's view on the increase of expenses that the royals cause. Prince Andrew, a royal. A suspected paedophile rapist. Prince Andrew was as bold as to think that he could seemingly lie through an interview and publicly determine himself as innocent. As bold as he was for taking up the interview, conducted by BBC, we met a nervous looking prince. There are hundreds of videos analysing this interview, and all of them point to nothing surprising. The Duke's private office, before the interview, naively believed that this would all go away if the allegations were just addressed in an open-style interview. How wrong they were. Prince Andrew's connections to Jeffrey Epstein was becoming less and less innocent as time went on. Instead of only being seen as a witness to such controversies, he's now seen, at least publicly, as a sexual criminal. Although alleged, the facts are stacked up against him. In an ideal world, justice would reign deserving. The royal family proclaims that they are sorry for being caught in this disaster, but not engaging in the consequences. We have yet to see how this is going to affect public opinion on the royal family as a whole. But if the media says anything about which way it's heading, then we'd expect that at least some will look at them differently. In addition to the Prince Andrew scandal, Netflix, an online media giant, is signing with the victims and giving them a platform to document their experience, which undoubtedly is again the power at play in this new digital age. A grasp on perception for the little guy can be detrimental to the public swaying truths, if media companies like Netflix so choose it. In all recent public discourse, the name Prince Andrew cannot be mentioned without the discussion of Jeffrey Epstein. The mystery surrounding Epstein is undeniable. Even the determined details about his background is debatable. When one researches into Epstein, and people like him, you'll find yourself questioning everything. Revealing the true powers of this hidden elitist class of people is sickening, but cloudy. Epstein was worth over $500 million. He made his riches through Wall Street. He's now become a household name for a lot of people in the Western world. A widespread meme, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Though, most definitely Epstein was rich. He was not a billionaire rich. He didn't have to be. He was still powerful enough to inflict terrible evils. Epstein had extraordinary connections to other rich supervillains. He provided many of them a service of sorts that allowed these elites to use their money for whatever their sexual heart desired. Epstein was merely a glimpse of what horrors were behind closed doors by the top 1%. And that is exactly why his death falls under such suspicious circumstances. Though only speculation, the public reaches their own conclusions. A man whose evils can only be seen as a direct connection of the wealth he holds is Jeff Bezos. In the books, he's the richest man in the world. Over the course of years, pressure for Jeff to share his wealth for charitable causes has accelerated. He's been seen as not doing enough, but as of recent, Jeff Bezos claims he has donated $10 billion to help fight climate change. What a good man, you might say. Finally, he's doing something for the betterment of this world. Jeff Bezos is 47% richer than the monarchy. Business Insider suggests that he makes $2.489 thousand every second. So approximately 7.7% of his net worth was donated to combating climate change. 10 billion is definitely a lot of money by most people's standards. Let's say you had 1,000 and you wanted to help fight climate change. So you match his percentage. You'd only be donating $77, which he's made 32 times more in 1 second. Perhaps the donation is merely for the public's perception. Most likely true, as he wanted to make his efforts public. Taking to his own social media and being the first person to point out what a good boy he is, yet still neglecting the criticisms of underpaying and mistreating his staff. Perhaps it is not so much of a stretch to assume that Jeff and his team are very much aware of the growing resentments for people like him, and the rich in general. I'd argue it's rather undermining to assume that relatively small donation to a global warming cause would settle people's opinions in regards to his continued wrongdoings, especially considering how little he donated to Australia's fires. Although a charitable behaviour should not be bashed, it's his irregularity that makes his decisions questionable. Comparing his actions with fellow billionaire Bill Gates, who has a charity of which he has donated $36 billion to, Jeff is doing very little. Giving Jeff the benefit of the doubt and saying that this is only the start of his good doings, it does not change his already tarnished public perception. Everything he does will be seen through the lens of repair. Maybe, someday, things will change. But for now, Jeff has only worsened the rich man image.
That hasn't changed, by the way.
Throughout all of human history, there's always been a struggle for balance of power. Whether power is decided by money or political dictatorship, there will always be people within our societies that get the short end of the stick. A capitalist will argue capitalism is the answer, as we all have a fair shot at climbing the economic tower. A communist will argue that communism is the answer, as everyone with the same money equals the same power, and that is fair. But in reality, every system we have tried has failed at making life for people fair. There will always be ones who try to use the system in their favor, disconnect from others as the power they greed grows ever more. As we reach this late stage capitalism, we cannot deny the inequality no longer. So a hatred has grown, where power has grown. In the few, these bad actions are inevitable. It is too easy for the top 1% to manipulate and take advantage of the masses that have been laid vulnerable due to the system they live in. There is not a single society where power has been used for solely good and the betterment of everyone underneath it. People cannot be trusted to do the right thing when given such a powerful opportunity. Therefore, it was an inevitability that late-stage capitalism would lead to the same problems. It only takes so long in this digital age for these actions to be noticed and communicated to the masses, and in turn changing the general public's opinion on the rich. What about Trump? What about the conservatives? The double-edged sword of the digital age. Almost everyone is connected. 48% of people worldwide are on the internet. That may seem not so surprising, but being more specific, 81% of people in developed countries are online, according to a 2017 statistic. That's a lot of people to communicate with. Yes, all these people could gain that information on the alleged or not alleged actions of the people they're voting for, but most likely they don't care enough to look very far. Cambridge Analytica, due to a data leak, were able to gather a significant amount of data points on 50 million Facebook profiles. With that data, they are able to target American voters and supposedly sway the votes into Donald Trump's favor using very precise targeted ads. They also used a similar tactic to aid the Leave campaign for Brexit, which in turn has helped the Conservatives stay in power due to their pro-Brexit political connections. All these campaigns have little publicity, but they have been successful in lying and convincing the general public that these things that they should vote for were in their best interests, when in reality, most people had little idea what they were actually voting for. Like a gravy-filled donut, these rich people had presented themselves to look good, but when the public takes a bite and actually sees and understands the outcomes of their votes, only then will the true fraud be revealed. But such a bite is unlikely to be widespread enough to make a change. Although the public does recognize the bad actions of the rich through these new powerful data techniques, the future rich may stay hidden to the general public. A battle of exposing the truth continues. An infowar is going to be exactly what determines the fate of our planet's future. The general population's opinion on the rich and the need for that opinion to be informed remains important. And as this new digital age continues, we all should hope for a reality where the honest truth isn't hard to find.